Well, it's day 4 on the Baja Divide, and I've already met some friends. Well, okay, I wouldn't say I've met them yet, but I have seen evidence of their existence. Here we have square tread and diamond tread here. 2 riders, probably a few days ahead of me. I've been following them. They're not much for a conversation, but you know, they let me know that I'm on the right track. Looks like Diamonds is ahead and a square tread is behind, or maybe they're riding together. You know, I may never meet them if they're a couple days ahead, and I'm not exactly the fastest, but feels nice knowing that I'm not alone out here.
Welcome to cranking it, yeah, we cranking it. Welcome to cranking it, yeah, we cranking it.
The Baja Divide route starts in San Diego and crosses the border into Mexico at Tecate, before winding its way down the peninsula, crossing back and forth from the Pacific Ocean to the Sea of Cortez, and finally reaching La Paz. As I headed out of San Diego, along the waterfront and through well-manicured parks, I couldn't help but think what a contrast this must be to the rest of the mostly rural, unpaved route through Mexico's least populated states. The first challenge arrived before I had even crossed the border, in the form of Otay Mountain. The route follows a steep road up to the top of the mountain, before descending back to the highway it left from. This would prove to be one of the biggest climbs of the route, but by no means the hardest. As I rode the last stretch of highway to the border, dark clouds started to form. Well, I made it to Mexico, and I'm on the Baja Divide. It's pretty good so far. Once I got off of the pavement, it's a little bit sandy, some exposed rocks, but it's all doable. The one thing I didn't really expect, though, is it's a bit rainy. I mean, I saw it in the forecast, but in general, this is not the weather that I necessarily pictured when I was thinking about the Baja California, so. But, you know, I'm prepared. I'm prepared for anything, so bring it on. Wow, yeah, pretty rainy. Should be better tomorrow, though, according to the forecast. It's a little chilly, but not so bad as long as I'm cranking. Good morning. Yesterday was my first day in Mexico, and it was a challenging one. Rained for most of the day. It was uphill for most of the day. I got chased by dogs a few times. One of them even bit a hole in my new pannier. And then at the end of the night, it got dark so fast, I had to find a place to camp after dark while it was raining. Today's day 2. It's still raining. It's definitely a tough start, but a lot of these trails have had tough starts, and then they get better later. So that's what I'm planning on for this one. Fortunately, as the day progressed, the rain lessened and the clouds parted. Alright, it's a few hours later and the sun is out. Imagine that, a sunny day in Mexico. Things are definitely looking up. The surface is no longer mud, and I'm about to reach the high point of the Baja Divide Trail. Ran into some dirt bikers, got a few of them. A lot of Americans riding their dirt bikes out here. But hopefully, my goal for this route is to actually meet some other cyclists. That might be nice. Though I think I'd probably be a bit slower than most of them, because they're all probably using more appropriate bicycles in this kind of terrain. As I descended down from the high point of the route, I began to encounter roads that were closer to what the Baja Divide is known for. Some roads were eroded, some were steep, some were full of loose rocks, and some were all three. The tough terrain, combined with the shorter winter days, meant that my average daily distance was lower than ever. All the pain and suffering was worth it, though, when I sighted the wild Mexican Pacific coast for the first time. Before long, though, it was back up into the mountains and into the San Pedro Martir Range. Down on the desert floor once again, the landscape began to change, with new and weird varieties of cactus. I also actually met the owners of the tracks I saw earlier. The square treads belonged to Carlo from Italy, who was carrying a surfboard, and the diamond treads belonged to Mateusz from Poland, who was riding the Baja Divide on a full road touring setup. Together we climbed over the pass into La Valle de los Cirios, the Valley of Candles. Home of the boojum trees, these strange spire-shaped plants are like something out of a Dr. Seuss book. Other strange and wonderful cactus species also started appearing, including the giant Mexican cactus. I soon realized that these guys were much faster than me, and if I wanted to keep riding with them, I had to crank harder than normal. After a brief stint on the highway, we headed back through the desert towards the coast once again. This was the longest section without any water resupply. We had to ride about 200 kilometers through the wild desert and along the coast before arriving at Santa Rosa Villita.
Buenos días.
We decided to attempt it in about 2.5 days, which meant we each carried about 10 liters of water. For most of the second day, I rode with Carlo, having been left behind by Mateusz. The map made it look like we would be in for a day and a half of uninterrupted coastal riding. It turned out that instead, most of the time was spent riding up and down steep inland hills nearby the coast. Just as predicted, we arrived in town with plenty of water, but I was tired from the push.
My name is Carlo. I am from Italy. I think the highlight compared to other people is that I have this surf rack. So it's mounted on the front, the head tube of the bike, and then here is on the seat post. Like this, all the load of the surfboard is on the frame. When you ride, you don't really feel it. It's basically the same. The problem is when there is wind. So when you have a sideways wind, you have gusts, then you feel it. It's like pushes you way more than otherwise. The main problem is when you have to put your right foot down. You want to put it outside, but you can't. So, you know, when I fall, and I fell and you had it on camera, that's what happened.
You alright?
All right, thank you. The next day, we continued along the coast, but my energy was lagging, and soon we parted ways. Well, I'm back to riding alone again. But to be honest, it's actually a bit of a relief, you know. I really liked hanging out with those guys, but I think they were just too fast for me. There was a lot of, you know, do I try to push and keep up with them, or do I stop and take a break so that I can eat, maybe get some shots, maybe do some video recording. You know, I was always making that choice. But they've left the Baja Divide and they're headed down south along the highway, where I'm still cranking along the divide. All right, so I just found this spot. It's around 4:15 or so. The sun is going down, so time to set up my tent. There's the tent set up. Home sweet home for the night. Sun is just about to go down. Back on my own schedule again, I was able to take time to enjoy the scenery and pursue some new hobbies, such as cactus climbing. As I crossed the peninsula from coast to coast, I encountered my first mission church, Misión San Francisco Borja. Built in 1762 and located deep in the desert, it is maintained by a local man and his family, who also give tours in exchange for donations. The next day completed my first crossing of the Baja Peninsula, and I beheld, for the first time, the Sea of Cortez. In the US, it's called the Gulf of California, but around here, everybody calls it the Sea of Cortez. This road is a little sandy, but it's still rideable, so grateful for that. Pretty typical for the Baja Divide, I think. There's hardly any easy roads. Most of them are either sandy, washboarded, rocky, with either loose rocks or, if you're lucky, embedded rocks. But this one has been like shallow sand, I would say, with a couple spots of deep sand where you gotta push. Sand is endless. I knew there'd be some sandy sections on this section. A lot of it just feels like it's only sand. Just climbed over a pass, and I think it marks the end of a pretty difficult section. Spent a lot of time just pushing my bike, through sand, trying to ride my bike, trying to find lines that's like more firm sand through the sand, getting a couple of cranks in, and then just coming to a halt, falling over, getting back up, pushing the bike some more. So it was tough. It might not be over. You never really know, but I'm pretty sure the guide says that the rest of the road down to the highway is pretty hard. And then once I get to the highway, I'm just gonna ride it all the way for about 100 kilometers to the town of San Ignacio, where there's a bike hostel, and I think it might be time for a rest day or two, you know. I haven't actually had a rest day on the Baja Divide yet. It's been about a couple weeks, a little more than a couple weeks, but so maybe I'll stop there for a bit, maybe work on some videos, maybe reconsider my choices in life, decide how much more of the Baja Divide I want to do. And also, coming up on December 21st, which is will mark my 6 month, 6 months on the road, and it'll be the winter solstice, so half a year on the road so far. About a third of the total time I had planned for this trip to take, and also the days will start getting longer, so that'll be nice. No more sunsets at 4:30. So yeah, a lot to look forward to. So things are looking up. Well, there's still more sand. I was a little premature on that one. It's mostly rideable, but only with a lot of effort and perfect balance. I arrived in San Ignacio and decided to stay for 5 days. After weeks in the desert, pushing through sand and constantly worrying about water, nothing was more welcome than a shaded oasis with a beautiful mission church. After my week off, I was back on the road, headed back to the Pacific coast. I never really know what to expect when I see a flat elevation profile, but this section along the coast was smooth, and with that tailwind, it was one of my favorite sections on the route. This was followed by one of the hardest sections on the route. This crossing from the Pacific back up to the Sea of Cortez traces a drainage up into the mountains, crossing the streambed multiple times. Then, after After a brief cruise along the Sea of Cortez, I headed back up into the Sierra de la Giganta. In San Javier, I stopped to admire the last mission church on the route, Misión San Francisco Javier. I really loved riding through the mountains of southern Baja. There was so much more surface water than in the north, and this often supported cute little towns in the valleys, shaded by palm trees. As I climbed the final pass out of the mountains, I felt a sense of relief. The hardest roads were behind me, and all that remained was a day of riding along the Sea of Cortez before arriving at La Paz and the end of the Baja Divide. In La Paz, I met up with my dad again, and we went out to swim with the whale sharks. Soon, we'll take a ferry to the mainland, and my dad will ride with me to Durango. Together, we will climb the steep, winding road known as the Devil's Backbone, 9,000 feet from the coast up to the central Mexican plateau. This will also be the start of the Trans-Mexico route, which will take me through central Mexico to the city of Oaxaca. That was tiring. Baja Divide is a tough route. I'm glad I did it, but I'm also glad that it's over. Thank you so much for watching, and a big thank you to my supporters on Patreon, and especially my Crank Tier supporters, Judy Friesem, Dan Phillips, Granberry Mickle, Jane Hilton, Kate and Mike Glasser, and JK. If you want to support the channel, the best way to do it is through the Patreon. For just $5 a month, you get early access to videos, as well as an interactive map showing the progress of my route so far. If that sounds good to you, the links are in the description. And thank you.